Hello. In this podcast, I will be talking about how we adapted the Caring for Children Who Have Experienced Trauma, a workshop for resource parents curriculum, into a pre-service class for prospective foster and adoptive parents. Throughout the rest of the podcast, I will be referring to the Caring for Children Who've Experienced Trauma curriculum as RPC. To give you a little history, for at least the past 15 years, our County of San Diego has utilized a standardized pre-service curriculum. At the time, it seemed to meet our needs and provided adequate preparation for prospective foster and adoptive parents. But in the most recent years, as trauma-informed information became more prevalent, what we were presenting in pre-service seemed to fall short. In addition, the pre-service curriculum began to be very dated and contained very little of the trauma-informed information. Several years prior, we had presented the RPC curriculum to current resource parents. The feedback about the curriculum was very positive. Even very seasoned foster parents seemed to gain a great deal from the curriculum. So with the RPC curriculum under our belt and the positive response we had received from foster parents, we began to consider the idea of using the RPC curriculum for our pre-service training. We love the idea that right off the bat, prospective foster and adoptive parents would be learning about trauma, the abuse and neglect that foster children have experienced, and the impact this trauma has had on their young lives. We also loved that the curriculum not only just provided the knowledge about trauma, but began the discussion about how resource parents can really help children to cope with and begin the healing of the trauma. Once we decided to adapt the RPC curriculum for pre-service, we contacted the National Child Traumatic Stress Network to obtain their permission for the changes we would need to make in order to make the curriculum relevant for pre-service and for individuals who did not have any prior experience with foster care. We named the pre-service training TIPS, T-I-P-S, which stands for Trauma-Informed Pre-Service. As we set out to make adjustments to the curriculum, it became clear that any place in the curriculum requiring participants to think about or consider a child from their own experience would need to be adapted. Throughout the RPC curriculum, participants are asked to identify an actual child from their own life and to keep that child in mind throughout the workshop. Although most adults may know or have a child in their life, we felt it was very important that they were exposed to and had the opportunity to consider children who had experienced abuse, neglect, and trauma. We realized that most adults coming in to be a resource parent may not have had any prior knowledge or know a child in this situation. In considering how we might provide participants with the opportunity to think about a traumatized child, we decided to utilize the 6 case studies of children from the RPC curriculum. In order to give participants some feeling of connection with the child, we decided that in session 1, participants would be assigned to one of the 6 vignette children, and they would be told that their assigned child would be their child throughout the course. In an attempt to make the vignette children more real, we selected pictures of children to match the vignettes, put them in stand-up photo frames, and then had the pictures throughout the training room. As the participants began working in groups with their assigned child, they were able to use the picture as a visual reference of their child. Throughout the course of the curriculum, Participants would conduct all of the My Child activities based on their assigned child. For some of the activities, such as in Session 4, Give a Safety Message, and Session 5, Decoding the Triangle, we actually chose specific vignette children that could be highlighted for the whole group to utilize. For those specific activities, we chose the stories of Andrea and James because those particular stories contained enough relevant information that participants could use to answer the questions of the activity. The instructions for each of the My Child activities were amended in the facilitator and participant guides to reflect the changes that we made, as well as in the PowerPoint slides. In the planning of the curriculum, we weren't really sure how effective using the case study children would be. However, in one of the initial pilot tips classes and the beginning of the second session, one of the participants came into class and was talking about her child, James. The way she was talking about James, I assumed she was in fact talking about her child. It turned out that she was actually talking about the vignette child, James. It really struck me how quickly the participants began to own their child from the curriculum. As far as the structure of the TIPS classes, each series is made up of 9 3-hour sessions for a total of 27 hours. In each session, the RPC material is presented for 2 hours, and then there's an additional hour of information that is added where we present county-specific material as well as additional information that we felt was important for all prospective foster and adoptive parents to have. The last session, Session 9, we actually have a potluck and a series of speakers. The speakers include a public health nurse who talks about medical and dental care for foster children, a birth parent who reunified with their child and talks about how the foster parent was instrumental, an independent living specialist, and then we also have several former foster youth who come and talk about their personal stories, what was positive for them in foster care, and what could have been handled more effectively. Session 9 also includes a wrap-up of the entire curriculum and an opportunity for participants to revisit the essential elements, choose one or two of those elements that they felt was most relevant for them, and then discuss that with the group. We have been delivering the TIPS curriculum in English for approximately 15 months, and this last July started TIPS classes in Spanish. The feedback from participants has been very positive, and many have commented how they feel they have a better understanding of the children and the trauma experiences these children have had. Many have stated that they feel so grateful to have had the trauma education and have really started to think about the foster children they will parent in a very different way. We've actually had some participants who, for one reason or another, did not finish their pre-service training when we were utilizing the prior curriculum. So essentially, these were individuals who experienced some of the prior curriculum and then also some of the TIPS curriculum. Many of these folks felt that the TIPS curriculum provided so much more information and really gave them the perspective of the experiences foster children have had and how the trauma these children have experienced will impact their life. They felt that with the TIPS curriculum, they were much better prepared to be effective foster parents. Some of our social workers and foster parents who teach the TIPS curriculum have also commented that they feel participants get a true glimpse of the trauma experienced by foster children, and they really gain a more realistic view of how trauma might affect a child and impact how that child might react and interact in their family. Utilizing the RPC curriculum for our pre-service has really made a significant positive impact in the preparation that prospective foster and adoptive parents receive. We're really hopeful that with families receiving this information from the get-go, that they will be better prepared and better able to meet the needs of children in foster care. We're very grateful to the National Child Traumatic Stress Network for working with us and allowing us to adapt the RPC curriculum. Having a base to work from was very important in moving forward with a trauma-based pre-service curriculum. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and feel free to contact me should you have any questions regarding using the RPC curriculum for pre-service training.
This marks the end of this podcast. For more information about the Resource Parent Curriculum, please visit us online at learn.nctsn.org/RPC. Thank you for listening.